Of all the ancient mysteries embedded in human history, none of them capture the imagination as powerfully as those regarding lost civilizations. Although Atlantis may be one of the most iconic examples of lost ancient cities, there are many other incredible historical tales just as mysterious and stunning. From desert dunes to jungle cities of gold, this documentary examines legendary lost cities that have yet to be discovered. In some cases, they may have been explored or discovered and removed from public attention. Recent discovery of lost city of the Kalahari Desert. In 1885, William Leonard Hunt became one of the first Westerners ever to set foot on this harsh terrain. He would eventually launch an expedition into an uncharted area of the Kalahari Desert and would be the first to lay eyes upon mysterious ruins that have remained unexplained until this day. This is a quote from his notes. "We camped at the foot of the mountain near a rocky ridge which looked like a Chinese wall after an earthquake. It was the ruins of a vast structure, sometimes sanded in. We carefully inspected the ruins, almost a mile long. They were a pile of huge hewn stones, and here and there, the traces of cement were clearly visible between them. In general, the wall had the shape of a semicircle, inside of which, approximately 40 feet apart, were piles of masonry in the form of an oval, the height of 1.5 feet. The word Kalahari comes from a local word meaning dry, waterless place. The Kalahari was a total extent of about 850,000 square kilometers, or 350,000 square miles, most of it falling within Botswana. A place like this could hide an ancient city under its sands for eternity. There have been 40 expeditions to find this lost city since 1885. None of them were fruitful. According to the Bushmen and Khoi living in this region, there was a vast city here which was built by a mysterious ancient civilization, and they were adamant they did not create it. The legend of the lost city has gathered strength over subsequent decades. Some researchers have attempted to draw comparisons to the archaeological finds at Great Zimbabwe to explain the presence of this unknown civilization. Mysterious ruins have been found in many different parts of the Kalahari, even north near the Caprivi Strip and Ovambo land. Even more interesting is the extensive ruins discovered on satellites. The map coordinates 30 degrees, 0 minutes, 21.64 seconds, and 21 degrees, 6 minutes, 21.69 seconds when viewed on Google Earth show the lake bed ruins clearly in a seasonal lake that dries up and floods yearly. The 40 by 20 mile region is littered with spiral formations, earthworks, and they even have Nazca Line style imagery. But if the recently discovered ruins are not the lost city, and considering William Leonard Hunt is the only one to have documented the place in any meaningful way, and the vast stretches of harsh terrain involved, if there really is a city out there, then it's possible that it could remain buried and hidden, as it has for thousands of years and just might for thousands more yet to come. The lost city of the Grand Canyon. Over a century ago, an incredible archaeological discovery was made in the Grand Canyon. What did archaeologists find? What evidence did they bring back? Did an ancient civilization have an outpost there? Was there a repository in the caves below the Grand Canyon? These are the legendary claims that may just have an element of truth. It all started in 1909 when purported Smithsonian Institution explorer G.E. Kincaid discovered strange caverns during an expedition directed by Smithsonian anthropologist S.A. Jordan. The entrance to the cavern was nearly inaccessible, but Kincaid was able to get in to make an incredible discovery. In a cross chamber near the entrance was the statue of a Buddha. Upon entering the cave, the story tells of elaborate paths, mammoth-sized rooms, an underground citadel, enough space to accommodate 50,000 people, idols, tablets, copper instruments, the remains of prehistoric animals, and, most shockingly, the one that captures people's imagination: Egyptian mummies? Kincaid also found what he believed to be hieroglyphic writing like that found in the peninsula of the Yucatan, Mexico. This was a significant discovery, no doubt about it. Impossible to slip off the archaeological radar. Still, the Smithsonian Institute will report it has no records on the subject. So, what happened? How did we get from a remarkable discovery to zero evidence, with no admittance of anything? Some have said that the entire discovery has since become the center of a major cover-up, apparently to maintain the old status quo, which is that the ancient Egyptians never ventured outside the tranquil waters of the River Nile. One book, Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, Volume 2, page 302, claims that two backpackers on their way found a pyramid made from the native rock. They claimed to have seen several cave entrances. They stated that the cave entrances were at the height of 800 feet, and the two climbed up, hoping to get into what looked like the most promising cave. But instead, they found it had been sealed off with rocks. They felt the entrance was human-made and that there was a 6-foot circular pattern hewn into the ceiling. If the discovery was real, why is it so difficult to find the site? Grand Canyon National Park encompasses more than 1.2 million acres, and most of the park is inaccessible due to the predominance of cliffs and inhospitable to all but desert plants and animals. If visitors go too far in the vast labyrinth of corridors, caves, and holes, they're lost forever. Interestingly, the area around 94 Mile Creek and Trinity Creek has sites with names such as Tower of Set, Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, Osiris Temple, etc. In the Haunted Canyon area are such names as Cheops Pyramid, the Buddha Cloister, Buddha Temple, Manu Temple, and Shiva Temple. Could the lost city be in these places? Also, it's worth noting that in 2001, researcher Jack Andrews said he had discovered the cave. He explained its location as being above an approximate 6-mile stretch of the Colorado River in Marble Canyon at the border of the Marble Canyon and the Navajo Nation. It's recently been publicly exposed that no helicopters can fly below the rim of the canyon to investigate. The perilous journey of hiking up 800 feet, even if you could find the location, would be a logistical nightmare. The tale of Kincaid's mysterious caves continues to incite speculation, mystery, and debate. It is a spectacular documented story that captures the imagination and shows no real signs of waning. Clearly, something happened there 100 years ago, and clearly investigation is being blocked. But why? Number 3. The Lost City of El Dorado. One of the most illustrious and legendary lost cities lies somewhere in South America. Is it a city, an empire, a part of a continent? What we know about this incredible story is provocative, compelling, and captivating to a host of researchers who get drawn into the saga. Such a remarkable place has never revealed itself yet, but in recent years, with advances in ground scanning technology, fantastic new discoveries have revealed abandoned cities and structures from unknown civilizations all over the Guatemalan jungle. Will El Dorado be next? The Guatemalan Mayan sites discovered by LiDAR are numbering 60,000 structures buried in the most hospitable jungle in the Americas. The proverbial needle in a haystack is a lot easier to find when LiDAR technology knows where the haystack is. With respect to the El Dorado haystack, pinpointing something tangible is proving elusive. To start the journey, we must first venture to South America, where the first legends of the Golden City originated. 35 miles northeast of Bogota, in the misty mountains of Colombia, there's an ancient crater lake that claims to be the source of the El Dorado story. The lake is known as Lake Guatavita, and it's the epicenter of El Dorado enthusiasts. The El Dorado legend is the primary reason for the centuries-long inspiration behind the exploration of a continent. The story's been retold over many years, and in many ways, the published evidence was so convincing that the Spanish invaders believed wholeheartedly it was correct. It further inspired many explorers, including Walter Raleigh, to explore at length, up and down the country searching for this lake. Analysis of old accounts and ancient texts reveal that the El Dorado of Colombia was never initially considered a city of gold at all. For the Muisca tribe of central Colombia, who have been known to exist since 800 AD, El Dorado represented their tribal chief, the Gilded One. Archaeological discoveries and conquistador recollections of these stories indicate that the Muisca chiefs would be covered in gold dust during initiation ceremonies and taken to the center of Lake Guadavita on a raft. Once in the center, he would throw gold and gems and other precious items as an offering to the gods. Much gold and gemstones have been discovered at this location, and some explorers even tried to drain the lake, without much success. But is this the exact location of El Dorado? Colombia has a rich history going back huge epochs, and gold artifacts are there at the center of all of them. El Dorado as a lost city concept has spread like wildfire across South America. New archaeological research shows that at one time, great swaths of the Amazonian forest was cultivated, and there's evidence of great towns that seem to have been overcome by the jungle. Archaeologists think these settlements were home to thousands of people, but the coming of Europeans brought disease, decimating the population. Interestingly, recent satellite technology might be changing the notion of El Dorado altogether, transforming it from a mythical city of legend into a precise location. The discovery of over 450 earthen works found near Brazil's Bolivar border by UK university research teams is thought to be in a promising place for the lost city of gold. The earthworks hint at an incredibly advanced civilization inhabiting the area between 200 and 1283 CE. This ancient city's inhabitants are currently unknown, yet the specific location, building configuration, and architecture resemble descriptions often referred to by El Dorado hunters. These earthworks mirror the ancient cultures of Europe in their style. Perhaps someday the city of El Dorado will be discovered, and the riches rumored to be contained within will be found. But for now, it remains a mystery whether El Dorado is a real gold-filled ancient city or merely a legend. The gold undoubtedly puts this as a huge aspiration for lost city researchers. Number 4. The lost city of Aztlan. Aztlan is the name of the long-lost homeland of the Aztecs, the ancient Mesoamerican civilization, also known as the Mexica. Aztlan means the place of whiteness in the Nahau language. According to their origin myth, the Mexica left Aztlan at the request of their ruler Huitzilopochtli to find a new home in the Valley of Mexico. According to the legend, on exactly May 24th, 1065 CE, the Aztec began an epic migration from their ancestral homeland, Aztlan, which translated means place of reeds, to the shores of Lake Texcoco in Mexico's Central Mesa. There they found the city of Tenochtitlan, which in time spawned the vast Aztec Empire famously encountered by Hernan Cortes. According to Nahuatl legend, 7 tribes once lived at Chicomostoc, the place of the 7 caves. These tribes represented the 7 Nahau groups: Acalhua, Chalca, Mexico, Tapaneca, Tlahuica, Tlaxacan, and Xochimilca. These 7 groups left their respective caves and settled as one group near Aztlan. Although the exact physical location of Aztlan is still unknown, other than it must have been located near estuaries, many have speculated on its precise location. Since the 1960s, researchers have also wondered whether Mexcaltitan is the location of Aztlan. Proponents of this theory point to the similarities between the layout of the streets in Mexicaltitlan and Tenochtitlan. Friar Diego Duran, circa 1537 to 1588, who chronicled the history of the Aztecs, wrote of Aztec Emperor Moctezuma's first attempt to recover the history of the Mexica by congregating warriors and wise men on an expedition to locate Aztlan. According to Duran, the team was successful in finding a place that offered characteristics unique to Aztlan. In 1887, Mexican anthropologist Alfredo Chavero claimed that Aztlan was located on the Pacific coast in the state of Nayarit. While contemporary scholars disputed this, it achieved some popular acceptance. Eduardo Matos Moctezuma presumes Aztlan to be somewhere in the modern-day states of Guanajuato, Jalisco, and Michoacan. Indeed, scholars are consistent in naming the measures of 150 leagues from Tenochtitlan that were documented by the Spanish scribes taking notes from conquered Mexico as the distance to the place of origin. This supposedly coincides at Chico Mostoc, Cerro del Culiacan, which is indeed a humped mountain when seen from the south face. We also have a document describing the legend of Aztlan written by the Aztecs themselves in Nahuatl using the Latin alphabet. This document, called the Annals of Tlatelolco, is a codex manuscript written on bark paper and contains no pictures, just text. To this day, the actual existence of an island known as Aztlan has not been confirmed. Many have searched for the land in hopes of having a better understanding of where the Aztecs came from, and perhaps a better understanding of ancient Mexican history. However, like other lost cities, it's not clear whether Aztlan will ever be found. Number 5. Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The real location of the elusive Hanging Gardens of Babylon has eluded researchers for centuries. They were the fabled gardens which adorned the capital of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, built by its great king Nebuchadnezzar II, 605 to 562 BCE. He's famous for his conquests of Judah and Jerusalem, his monumental building within the capital of Babylon, his role in the Book of Daniel, and his construction of the gardens, which, as legend has it, he had made for his wife Amytis of Media, because she was homesick for the mountain springs where she grew up. One of these 7 wonders of the ancient world, they're the only wonder whose existence is disputed amongst historians. The Hanging Gardens seem magical in a way, too fantastic to have been real. Yet so many of the other seemingly unreal structures of Babylon have been found by archaeologists and proven to have really existed. The image of the gardens is impressive not only for its beauty but also for the engineering feat of supplying the massive raised gardens with soil and water. The lush hanging gardens were extensively documented by Greek historians such as Strabo and Diodorus Siculus. Between 1899 and 1917, a German archaeologist, Robert Koldewey, may have unearthed the Hanging Gardens. He found something like what Diodorus Siculus had described. In the bottom of the Hanging Gardens, there were 3 strange holes in the floor that would have worked well for a chain pump irrigation system. This would have made it possible to water the plants. Recent excavations have found traces of aqueducts near Nineveh, which would have supported such a garden. Nineveh is only 300 miles away from Babylon. Oxford University's Stephanie Daly also proposes they may have been in Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, and that they belonged to another king, Sennacherib of Assyria. This assumes an error that is as big as placing the Eiffel Tower in Berlin, although it's not impossible. Daly's been criticized not for her theory, but for how she portrays it. It would explain why there's no evidence of these gardens in Nebuchadnezzar's writings about his accomplishments, or in the ground where some archaeologists continue to dig for it. Why haven't they been discovered? First, archaeological research is not finished in Babylon. While much of the terrain has been identified, there are still areas in which the remains of the Hanging Gardens may be hidden. Then the city of Babylon was not famous only for its hanging gardens, but mainly for its ramparts. It's curious that the gardens had supplanted the ramparts because they were much more impressive. Still, according to documents of the time, some scholars argue that the reason there's no record of them is precisely they were gardens. Plants and flowers are living things that eventually die. Even if the structure on which the gardens were affixed remains, it could very well be in unrecognizable ruins. Until they're discovered, or proof of their existence emerges, the world may never know whether the gardens existed or not. Even so, they will forever remain as one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. Number 6. The Teos Caves. Written references to the Teos Caves go back as far as 1860, but it's been known to the indigenous Shuar people for much longer. The caves sit within Shuar territory and are one of the reasons why it has rarely been explored. The Shuar decide who is allowed access to their sacred land, usually dispelling Westerners as bad intentions. In 1973, Eric von Daniken, at the height of his fame following the success of Chariots of the Gods, claimed that he had entered into a gigantic subterranean tunnel system in Ecuador, which he was told spanned the length of the continent, surely evidence that our ancestors were highly advanced. The structure was believed to house a library in which books were made from metal. This is in an area where today there's nothing but primitive Indian tribes with no written language. In 1972, Moritz met with von Daniken and took him to a secret side entrance through which they could enter a large hall within the labyrinth. Von Daniken never got to see the library itself, just the tunnel system. The cave is made up of massive blocks of stone, which seem to have been cut out using some sort of advanced machinery tens of thousands of years ago. Von Daniken immortalized the event in his book, The Gold of the Gods. The passages all form perfect right angles. Sometimes they're narrow, sometimes wide. The walls are smooth and often seem to be polished. The ceilings are flat and at times look as if they were covered with a kind of glaze. Moritz said that passages like those through which we're going extended for hundreds of miles under the soil of Ecuador and Peru. Teos was also mentioned as the location of the notorious Father Crespi's collection of mysterious golden artifacts, often considered to be alien in appearance and provenance. Furthermore, some of the metallic plates recovered from the cave are said to have been on display at Father Crespi's museum in Ecuador before the Vatican seized control. Since his death in 1982, nothing is known of the plates, only the testimony and limited writings and images of Crespi with objects. But there remain many unanswered questions. Where are the artifacts that were photographed and filmed in the 1970s consisting of gold carvings, hieroglyphs, and Sumerian figures? Why aren't they anywhere to be seen in the central bank of Ecuador storage rooms? Did someone take them? If so, where did they take them? Why would the Pope be number one suspect? What was on them? Even today, the Cave of the Teos remains the obsession of many explorers who seek to find in its interior the answers to the enigma surrounding the colossal blocks of stone that make up the cave's walls and ceilings. Neil Armstrong himself was paid in part to promote the Great Teos Expedition that in 1976 explored the Ecuadorian Amazon. At present, 3 documentaries exploring these mysterious tunnels. But as of now, the Metal Library has eluded everyone. Number 7. The Lost City of Z. Human beings have always been drawn to the prospect of mysterious, unexplored places. In 1920, an explorer by the name of Percy Fawcett became frantically obsessed with seeking out his modern-day El Dorado, which he dubbed the City of Z. He launched 2 searches for it in the early 1920s, but was driven out of the jungle on both occasions by poor weather, fever, the locals, and exhaustion. It took more than 3 years of campaigning before he finally secured funding for a 3rd mega mission. In 1925, at the age of 58, explorer Percy Fawcett with his son Jack and his son's friend Raleigh Ramel headed deep into the jungles of Brazil. He and his entire team would vanish without a trace, and the story would turn out to be one of the most notorious news stories of his day. The legend of the lost city of Z is based upon a document now held in Rio de Janeiro's National Library, which supposedly was written in 1743. The document claims to tell the history of a group of explorers who found a lost city in the interior of the rainforest. It happened, it was documented, and now has become the go-to source for lost cities in South America. After reading this document, dubbed boringly as Manuscript 512, and hearing stories from some of the indigenous tribes about a lost city in the jungle, it's plain to see why it convinced Colonel Fawcett that a lost city did indeed exist somewhere in the Amazon jungle. Although the manuscript describes the city in detail, frustratingly, it does not include a specific location. The Amazon jungle was virtually the last unexplored land on Earth. The area was too extreme to live in, putting even more interest in Fawcett when he ventured into the jungle. However, Bakhairi Indians have recently been discovered in the Amazon, thus proving the area is possible to live in. All the while, local runners would take letters back along the route. News from the front was syndicated around the world, and millions of readers followed until eventually the letters dwindled and ceased. What happened to Fawcett and his expedition? What secrets is the jungle privy to that have managed to evade us? The disappearance of the Fawcett expedition remains one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. Resolving the mystery after years and years is still status quo. In total, 13 expeditions worked hard to find the lost team. About 100 people lost their lives or disappeared searching for it. What do you think happened to Percy Fawcett and his team? Number 8. Legendary Shambhala. For thousands of years, there's been a rumor circulating that somewhere in Tibet, among the snowy Himalayan peaks and secluded valleys, there's an untouched paradise, a peaceful kingdom with a universal policy that's indescribable to most of the world. This kingdom is known as Shambhala. Many describe it as a circular city in the shape of a lotus flower. The name Shambhala derives from Sanskrit texts and is thought to mean place of tranquility. The myth of Shambhala first appears in early Kalahari Buddhist texts, which specify that its capital is named Kalapa and that the rulers are from the Kalki dynasty. The Hungarian scholar Sándor Kőrösi Kusoma, writing in 1833, provided the first geographic account of a fabulous country in the north, situated between 45 degrees and 50 degrees north latitude. During the 19th century, Theosophical Society founder Helena Blavatsky alluded to the Shambhala myth, giving it currency for Western occult enthusiasts. Edwin Birnbaum, PhD, a lecturer, author, mountaineer, and scholar of comparative religion and mythology, writes that Shambhala is a physical place existing within the human realm, but it's also a spiritual, even supernatural place, which many also believe exists within another dimension. Nicholas Roerich claimed an entrance to Shambhala was connected via an underground passage to Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. Tibetan religious texts tell us that the technology of Shambhala is supposed to be highly advanced. Some have interpreted ancient teachings and concluded Shambhala's inhabitants might have been using aircraft and vehicles that shuttle through a network of underground tunnels. On the way to enlightenment, Shambhala's natives acquire such powers as telepathy, the ability to move at high speeds, and the ability to materialize and disappear at will. The Tibetan Lobsang Rampa told how he had visited this mystical place many times. Its location was high in the Himalaya mountains. Rampa writes the following: Tibet is the most convenient country of all for flying saucers. It's remote from the bustle of the everyday world and is peopled by those who place religion and scientific concepts before material gain. Throughout the centuries, the people of Tibet have known the truth about flying saucers, what they are, why they are, how they work, and the purpose behind it all. We know of the flying saucer people as the gods in the sky in their fiery chariots. Over many centuries, numerous explorers and seekers of spiritual wisdom have embarked on expeditions and quests in search of the mythical paradise of Shambhala. Some of these adventurers in their hot pursuit disappeared forever. While many have claimed to have been there, no one has been able or willing to pinpoint its physical location on a map. Number 9. The Lost Continent of Mu. Did an ancient and advanced race of beings purportedly inhabit a landmass which sunk into the ocean, spreading the survivors to all corners of the earth? Yes. Do we have evidence? Yes. Who has it? Well, James Churchward, in books such as The Lost Continent of Mu, 1931, wrote that the motherland stretched from the Hawaiian Islands to Fiji and from Easter Islands to the Marianas. Churchward considered the Nanmodal site on Pohnpei Island one of the 7 sacred cities of Mu. Today, its ruins sit on a swampy lagoon filled with mangrove trees. Rising about 30 feet in height, black volcanic stones weighing many tons are stacked crisscross like a child's frontier fort. It's one of the more enigmatic sites in the entire Pacific, yet archaeologists cannot explain how it got there. Indeed, stone monuments of mysterious origin dot the entire Pacific, from Japan's spectacular underwater site at Yonaguni to cryptic petroglyphs on Hawaii's Big Island. Menehune Ditch on Kauai is built from dressed and fitted stone slabs like something ancient Romans would have erected, very different from typical Polynesian style. And of course there's Easter Island, the centerpiece of many Lemuria theories. Its hundreds of colossal stone statues and written language point to an advanced culture, yet it appeared on the world's most remote spot. Why? The legends of Easter Island speak of Hiva, which sank beneath the waves as people fled, while Samoans called a similar place Bulutu. It was stocked with trees and plants bearing fruits and flowers, which were immediately replaced when picked. On Bulutu, men could walk through trees, houses, and other physical objects without any resistance. The Maoris of New Zealand still talk about arriving long ago from a sinking island called Hawaii, a vast and mountainous place on the other side of the water. Yet there's another puzzling piece of evidence. A map of the lost continent published by the Lemurian Fellowship corresponds almost precisely to boundaries on the Pacific Plate. But the map first appeared long before geologists even knew of the plate's existence. How? Their detailed map places the capital just north of present-day Maui, near the center of a vast continent stretching from Australia to the Rocky Mountains. Edgar Cayce made a distinction between Mu, which floated off the coast of Baja California, and Lemuria, whose location is confusing to say the least. According to Cayce, the Andean or the Pacific coast of South America occupied then the extreme western portion of Lemuria. Either he meant eastern or Earth's landmasses have changed a lot, perhaps due to a pole shift or crustal slippage. According to David Childress and various esoteric sources, The first civilization rose 78,000 years ago on the giant continent known as Mu or Lemuria and lasted for an astonishing 52,000 years. It's sometimes said to have been destroyed in earthquakes generated by a pole shift which occurred some 26,000 years ago, or at approximately 24,000 BC, which is a nice tie-in with the precessional cycle. While Mu did not reach as high a technology, supposedly like other later civilizations, it is nevertheless said to have attained some advanced technology, particularly in the building of long-lasting megalithic structures that were able to withstand earthquakes. However, it was the science of government that's sometimes said to have been Mu's greatest achievement. Can an entire continent sink or vanish? That's something most geologists say is impossible based on zero geological evidence. Actually, it's basic geology, yet they say based on history and mythology viewpoints out of dislike. Yet the event is widely supported by Pacific area mythology from Australia to Arizona. Number 10. The Hopi Legends. Down on the bottom of the seas lie all the proud cities, the flying Patuvotas and the worldly treasures corrupted with evil. Faced with disasters, some people hid inside the earth, while others escaped by crossing the ocean on reed rafts, using the islands as stepping stones. The same story of escape to dry land appears in the Popol Vuh epic of the Quiche Maya and the Modoc tribe of Mount Shasta, among others. According to the Rosicrucians of San Jose, California, the destructive cycle began with volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and collapse of subterranean gas belts. Magnetic waves started moving around the globe, and Lemuria started to go under. Fortunately, there was time enough for small groups to salvage part of Lemuria's precious wisdom, which was stored in crystals. Some colonists reached India and from there Mesopotamia and Egypt, while others migrated eastward on crude rafts to the Americas, forming the racial core of the earliest Indian tribes. They believed California was home to history's oldest people, pure Lemurians who later became the California Indians. That would explain why America's oldest human artifacts were found on Santa Rosa Island off Santa Barbara, dated about 25,000 BC. The same time Lemuria may have slipped beneath the waves. The intrigue and mystery of Lemuria, Mu, Atlantis, and other lost continents and cities are kept alive by philosophers, mystics, futurists, and the open-minded. They allow us a glimpse into the ancient past and visions of the distant future where science fiction becomes science fact.